Hi, everyone. Welcome to How to Organize a Peer-to-Peer Fundraising Campaign by CauseVox. My name is Rob Wu, the CEO and founder of CauseVox. We also have Jenna Notar-Francesco of CauseVox as well. So super excited to share with you today a few fundraising tips on how you can organize your peer-to-peer fundraising campaign, whether it's for the first time or for the 12th time. We'd love to share with you the basic process for it, some tips, some toolkits, some examples, some best practices. So we're really excited today. So we'll be getting started very shortly in the next few minutes. In the meantime, if you do have a chance, feel free to use some of the chat tools within the Zoom interface. If you have any questions, feel free to ask us right away. We'll get to it during this webinar. And if you do have any questions while we're sharing some of our best practices related to peer-to-peer campaigns, you can also chat us in at any time. Anytime you have a question, a light bulb, whatever you have, tips to share even, feel free to chat us in, and then the audience as well as other folks can really see it. In the meantime, as we're getting folks situated, this session will be recorded. Also, it will be shared. The slides will be shared too a few days after this webinar. So look out for that. You will get an email if you registered for this webinar, which everyone who is on it did register for it. So we will be getting started very shortly. So stay tuned.
I'm excited. I wonder where everyone is calling in from. Feel free to let us know. We'd love to hear from you, your name, where you're from, your organization, a little bit of why you're here, what you're hoping to learn.
Yes, we'd love to hear from our audience today. We have a bunch of people who registered. We'd love to see who is actually here and who we're talking to. So if you do have a chance, feel free to chat us in with your name, where are you calling in from, and maybe something interesting about where do you wish you were instead. So feel free to chat us in. I guess, Jenna, I should ask you, who are you, what's your name, where are you calling in from, and where would you rather be?
These are great questions. Well, my name is Jenna. I am calling in from Queens, New York City in my apartment. And where would I rather be? I think I'd rather be somewhere outside, maybe like outdoor, like patio or beach, something where I can feel some wind, some breeze. Yeah.
I think we need to make some changes in terms of where you're working then. We can make that happen. So I'll go next. My name is Rob Wu. I am currently in Austin, Texas, where it is summer every single day of the year. Where I wish I was. I am taking a trip later this week, but I think one of the places I wish I was is, I've been thinking a lot about Oman. I took a trip to Oman in the Middle East a few years ago, and I spent a lot of time in the desert, and I wish I was in a desert for some reason right now. Yeah, let's see, who else have we got here today? So we have Rachel from Los Angeles. Hey, Rachel. Awesome, scuba diving, that's amazing. We also have, who do we have? We have Dana for Brittany's Hope. Amazing, thanks for joining us from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We have a lot of other folks too. So for the folks who just joined us, a bunch of folks here, my name is Rob Wu. I'm the CEO and founder of CauseVox. I will be one of your speakers today. You also have Jenna Notar-Francesco, also one of your speakers today from CauseVox. Super excited to have you join us in our How to Organize a Peer-to-Peer Fundraising Campaign webinar. We will be getting started within the next 15 seconds or so. A few housekeeping items to start. One is that this session is being recorded. You will get the slides, and also you'll get an email with those links probably by the end of this week, maybe around Wednesday or Thursday. So look out for that if you can't stay with us the whole time, or if we gloss over something important that you want to take a look at. Other thing too is we do have this chat function. A lot of times when Jen and I present, we love to know who we're talking to, because we may not be talking to anybody. So it kind of feels a little weird. So if you could let us know who you are, what's your name, where are you calling in from, where would you rather be? We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to kind of see what are some of our folks who are joining us today and where they wish they were. So feel free to chat us in. All right, Jenna. I think I kind of spent too much time on this, so why don't we get started? All right.
All
All right.
right.
Ready to go? So let's do this. So welcome to How to Organize a Peer-to-Peer Fundraising Campaign. My name is Rob Wu, CEO and founder of CauseVox. You also have Jenna Notar-Francesco of CauseVox as well. We're super excited to share with you in this session of how you can organize a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign.
Awesome. So if you're new to CauseVox, I'll just share a little bit about our platform. We are a digital fundraising platform, and we are designed to help your organization raise more with less effort. So we'll do that by helping you house all of your fundraising components under one platform. We have best-in-class donation pages, mobile payments, campaigns, ticketing, and peer-to-peer, which we're going to dive more into later on. We have hands-on support. We have dedicated email support and call support, and we're with you every step of your fundraising journey. And then we also provide top-rated fundraising education in the form of guides, templates, webinars like this one, and also courses to help your nonprofit. So as I had mentioned, we can really replace your clunky, outdated software. Maybe it's a donation form on your website that's a little clunky, or a PayPal button. And we can really just help to tidy up your digital fundraising all around in the form of the donation forms and pages, which can be embedded on your website. That can include Pledge Now, Pay Later, which is an up and coming trend for in donor preferences. And then that's in connection with also crowdfunding, event ticketing, and peer-to-peer fundraising. So everything under one roof. You don't have to have 7 different platforms. You can use just one and have all of your money coming through one place. And speaking of your money, your donations, we really have optimized and modernized our donation forms to make it the fastest, easiest transaction for donors. We eliminate all the barriers so your donors can get in, get out, make their mobile payments, and have those automated customizable receipts sent directly to them. So we'll share more about the donation forms later on. And then also hands-free peer-to-peer, which is what we're focusing on today. Basically, you set up all the default information for them in the back end, and then they can sign up and get started very quickly. And you can use peer-to-peer for any virtual, hybrid, or in-person event, whether it's a DIY campaign, a challenge, a gala. If you can think of it, I always say, if you can think of it, you can fundraise for it. And so we're going to look at some of those examples today. But if you're more interested in a demo to see how CauseVox can help your organization specifically, I would encourage you to schedule a demo with us. You can go to our schedule a demo page, take a tour with us. You can schedule a pre-recorded demo or book a one-on-one live demo with yours truly. And I'd be happy to show you around. And I'm going to kick it back to Rob.
Cool. So thank you, Jenna, for the intro to CauseVox. I was just looking at our chat, and we have a whole bunch of people that would rather be somewhere tropical, rather be somewhere on the beach. So I love that. I am the same way too. So in terms of our session agenda today, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about the basics of peer-to-peer fundraising, how it works. We'll talk about peer-to-peer campaign and event ideas as well. So if you don't have an idea of how you want to do peer-to-peer, we're going to talk about, I think, around 12 to 14 different examples of what you can borrow or adapt and fit to your organization. We'll talk about the tangible steps on how you can organize a peer-to-peer campaign, and then we'll walk through some of the recent campaigns to do a deep dive in terms of their best practices. In terms of me, I've been running CauseVox for 12 years, so I've seen thousands of peer-to-peer campaigns. Also raised around $200,000 or $300,000 through peer-to-peer campaigns myself. So some of this is from my own experience, but most of this is actually from leveraging the great insights from our successful nonprofits running peer-to-peer campaigns. So I've been doing this series, talking to a lot of our customers, and what's interesting is that when you talk to a lot of customers, you draw a lot of different insights in terms of how they approach peer-to-peer and some of the levers that they pull in order to be successful. So I included some of those insights into this presentation. So what's next? So let's talk about peer-to-peer as a first agenda item. the basics of peer-to-peer, and I'll go over this very quickly and then show you some examples, or Jenna will show you some examples, is that peer-to-peer fundraising is a way for you to fundraise through your supporters and through your network. So instead of you doing an organization-driven fundraising initiative, such as like doing an e-blast or doing some one-on-one fundraising, you're actually relying on your group of supporters, such as your donors, your board members, or your volunteers, whoever you have an email address to, you're relying on them to go out there, create a personal page and fundraise on your behalf. So they're reaching out through social media, they're reaching out one-on-one to their friends, they're texting people, they're basically asking their friends and family to donate to your organization. Tangibly, how it works is that you have a campaign or you have some type of initiative. You have teams of folks, whether they be board members or schools or volunteer groups. And you have all these individuals, the orange layer over here, creating these personal pages, and then their networks are donating to them either through social media or through email or just whatever mechanism there is in order to drive donations to your organization. I do see that this team layer is optional. So if you're running peer-to-peer for the first time, I actually wouldn't think about teams because it kind of complicates things a little bit too much. But if you're running peer-to-peer for the second, third, fourth time, or even more, then adding a team layer is important because it creates pockets of community that you can leverage for competitions, as well as pockets of community that you can leverage for best practices as well. Peer-to-peer generates incredible results. During my series, I've talked to a couple different organizations. These are just a few ones that I'm highlighting here where, for example, Meat Fight, they raise $100,000 through peer-to-peer. VizArts, they raise $100,000 every single year through peer-to-peer as well. And then Carousel Ranch, they raise over that every single year. So it generates a ton of results. And typically we see that organizations that have some type of peer-to-peer component in their fundraising initiatives raise twice as much as just doing a direct donation form or doing a donate button. So it yields a lot of results. At the end of the day, the benefits of peer-to-peer really is more funds raised, more awareness, because you're getting a lot of folks to go out there and blast it out and talk to their friends. So there's a ton of awareness being made. But then some of the marketing benefits also include new contacts generated. So you can feed the top of your donor journey. And then you can even engage supporters and your corporate sponsors in a way where it's not just about asking for donation, it's creating an ask to engage pockets of community, which a lot of corporate sponsors really value. So that's kind of like the basics of peer-to-peer in a nutshell. In terms of organizing your peer-to-peer, where are my slides? There you are. Sorry, bear with me. In terms of organizing your peer-to-peer campaigns, we do have a really quick process. This is the same process that I use when I run my peer-to-peer, as well as it's the same process that every single successful CauseVox peer-to-peer campaign takes. First, you determine your fundraising idea. Like, what is your peer-to-peer campaign? Is it a walkathon, or is it something virtual, or is it a challenge? Kind of whatever it is, you create that. Next, what you do is you create a peer-to-peer campaign site. So you have a destination for your initiatives that streamlines your donation processing, your donation receiving, as well as provides a destination for your community to gather, where they can see other people fundraising, they can have a personal page. It gets people really excited about that. Next, what you do is you'll recruit participants. Participants are folks who are partaking in your peer-to-peer campaign, whether they be board members or volunteers and et cetera. These are folks actually creating personal fundraising pages to go out there and help you drive donations to your peer-to-peer campaign. Next, you'll nurture number 3. So you want to take off your hat of being a fundraiser and put on your hat of being a coach. So what you want to do is nurture and coach folks, nurture these fundraisers so they're successful in going out there and marketing their page, as well as asking their friends and family for donations. And then very lastly, you'll do some reporting and debriefs, which we'll go over as well. So for the next section, the meat of this webinar, I'm going to go through each one of these 5 sections here and tell you some of the processes and some of the best practices. So the first step is you want to determine your peer-to-peer fundraising idea, like what it is you're going to do. I think the idea is very important because a bad idea is very hard to sell. A bad idea is very hard to create a message around. It's very hard to compel somebody to go out there and fundraise for you. A great idea will just sell itself, where you don't have to try as hard when it comes to messaging, or you won't have to try as hard when it comes to the nurturing when you have a great idea. So that being said, it's very important to think about the best idea that matches your organization. There's a few different ones that we see a lot on our platform. there's three different buckets. The first bucket would be peer-to-peer campaigns that are really organized by the organization, which is kind of typically how peer-to-peer campaigns work. These are kind of virtual galas and events. There's runs, walks, races, and challenges, polar plunges, bowl-a-thons. Just something that's activity focused is typically very successful. And another section of great peer-to-peer ideas really revolves around giving days, programs, and projects. These are also organization driven. They could be an annual campaign, or they can be like a crowdfunding campaign, Giving Tuesday, capital campaigns, just anything focused on funding a specific project or program with a specific need also is very successful. This middle component here, the second component, doesn't have an activity or an event focus. It's something that's a little bit more virtual, a little less kind of just gathering people in one place. And the very last bucket would be peer-to-peer initiatives started by your supporters. So this is ongoing fundraising, ongoing peer-to-peer fundraising, do it yourself. A lot of times it revolves around in honor and memory of peer-to-peer campaigns, or it could be just kind of donating your birthday or donating your wedding registry. Things like that are also another category of peer-to-peer. Now, on our platform, we see the most success and the most amount of activity from the first two. So the ones that are event-driven, as well as the ones that are giving days and projects, those are typically the most common types of peer-to-peer initiatives, just because it's organized by your organization. Once you do get to a certain scale, if you have a lot of supporters, a lot of contacts, and becomes more ingrained in the culture of your organization, then we see a lot of the do-it-yourself type of fundraising, where folks can go in anytime, create a personal fundraising page, and do their fundraising that way. So what you want to do next is, as you're thinking about your ideas, as it fits into these categories, there's this ideal fundraising concept that I have, and it really revolves around the intersection of three different things. The first one is your brand. So as you're evaluating different ideas, as you're putting it together, you want to find something that fits your organization, something that ties to the impact that you can have. If you're able to do that, then better. Next thing is you want to figure out the timing. For example, when I talk to one of our customers, Carousel Ranch, they always run a peer-to-peer initiative in February. And when I asked them the reason why, they asked the primary reason why is because nobody fundraises in February. Everybody's all tired from December doing year end, that fundraisers just need like a 3-month break before they actually do some fundraising. So what they've done is, since there's a gap in the communications of other organizations, they take advantage of this kind of this blue ocean strategy, where they're actually doing their peer-to-peer campaign in February, since no other nonprofit is doing that. So think about timing. How does it fit in your fundraising calendar? Is there a gap that you're trying to fill? Because what you don't want to do is cram all your fundraising into the spring and the winter. There's a lot of room throughout the year where you can actually have your peer-to-peer initiative. Then very lastly, having something that resonates with their audience. When I talk to Meat Fight, for example, what they love to do is they love to do barbecues, and they love to do beers, and they love to run events and peer-to-peer around that. So organizing something where it fits what your audience is interested in is a lot easier than organizing something where they have zero interest. If you're an organization where a lot of your donors and supporters like to do athletic events, such as cycling events or walks, races, then you want to organize your peer-to-peer fundraising activity or event around that. If your organization does not have that demographic, or maybe is interested in more around a board game tournament or something like that, then you want to organize your peer-to-peer fundraising against that. So the ideal fundraising idea is the intersection of your brand, your timing, and your audience. So things to think through when it comes to ideation. First is you want to set a fundraising goal that's specific. So a tangible amount that you want to raise, so you can track progress around that, as well as year after year, you can see how you're growing your fundraising. You want to have a strong message so that of why people should fundraise for you. I think a lot of times organizations, when they run peer-to-peer, there's not a strong message of why someone should actually take the time and effort to go in there, create a page, ask their friends. It becomes an afterthought. So we'll have some techniques later on in this presentation, how you can do that. You want to think about setting an end date so that you can have something that's more defined. So you can define different parts of the communication calendar that is organized around that end date. And very lastly, thinking about some of the metrics of how many fundraisers do you actually need to recruit in order to get to the fundraising numbers that you want to do. Other activities too, thinking about incentives, or thinking about corporate sponsors. These are more just kind of the gravy on top. If you do have corporate sponsors you want to engage, you want to put them on a list so you can engage them as you recruit them. There are incentives that you can offer as more of a thank you to folks who are fundraising, then that's also beneficial too. And then if you want to add on the activity component. All right, so after you think about the idea, you come up with a great one, make sure it matches the three circles of brand, timing, and audience. Once you're ready to go, then you want to create a peer-to-peer campaign site. In every peer-to-peer campaign site, there's a few different components. So you have the first one is your campaign homepage. This is the main page of your peer-to-peer campaign site that shows what you're trying to do as well as your fundraising progress. Next layer down are your personal pages, which are individuals. So I would go in and create my own personal fundraising page and fundraise for your organization. And then the other part over here on the right would be team fundraising pages. And these are groups of individual pages or just a group page for a school, or for a church, or for a company where folks can have a presence as well. And below that, you'll have your donation form, so folks can actually take donations on their personal pages or make a donation on the campaign homepage. And the optional one over here will be an event ticketing form. If you do have an activity related to your peer-to-peer, if you're trying to sell tickets, you can also include an activity or a registration form, so folks can go in there and register for the event. Now, these are just boxes, so it looks really plain. I'm going to hand it over to Jenna because she has an example to share of all of these components here of a live fundraising campaign.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm going to try to bring this to life. All right, share my screen real quick. And here is the Meat Fight campaign homepage. So here it is. We've got your stats, your appeal text, and your leaderboard for your peer-to-peer. You can post updates if you want to, and then a recent donor wall. So here it is. Here's the homepage. Here's your main campaign site donation form. Here is, again, the leaderboard. So this is personal pages. So here's Jen's personal page. Here's Jen's personal page donation button. And you can see that the donation will go directly to Jen, assigned to her page. Then if I want to move on to the teams, I can click on the team she's associated with. Here's an example of a team page. Team members listed here. If I go back to the home screen, I'll just show you what the team list looks like. If you click over to the Teams tab, I like how they have them all synchronized with their profile icon. Really cool. Yeah, here's a quick look at a campaign homepage with pretty much all of those components except the ticketing. But if you wanted to do a campaign that included peer-to-peer and ticketing, here's one example. Your purchase tickets button is included right in the same area of the CTA where your donation form is. And those peer-to-peer pages are also listed here. Yeah, all right. So this is a quick walkthrough. And I'm going to hand it back to Rob.
Yep. So yeah, the second step is just creating that peer-to-peer campaign site. A lot of times platforms like CauseVox make it really easy for you to create a peer-to-peer campaign because everything is templatized. You can go in, change the branding. You don't have to code. You can basically just set up everything up to make it look professional and get something up and running within a few minutes. So what we encourage folks to do is just after you have a fundraising idea, just go in there, create a campaign site so you kind of start to visualize that idea. And then you can start to begin to build it out. Because what you don't want to do is kind of come up with the perfect idea in a vacuum and not have like the tooling in order to execute on that idea. And that kind of gets you in trouble since you had to start over with changing your idea and then selling it to your boss and all that stuff. So it's best to kind of work in tangent work in parallel, where you have your idea going on, and then you have your actually campaign sites and peer-to-peer going on. So you can kind of go back and forth between what you want to include, what you want to exclude, or how you want to adapt the idea. So platforms like CauseVox make it really easy for you so that you can just set everything up in one place with no coding required. So after you get to a good place with your creating your peer-to-peer campaign site, then next up is recruiting participants. So I think this is one of the most important activities. Okay, well, all these steps are important, but this is important too, because if you don't have any participants, if you don't have any peer-to-peer fundraisers, then you're not gonna have any donations. So I wanna spend a little bit of time kind of talking about how you can recruit peer-to-peer fundraisers. So just basically a very straightforward process for doing that. So the first thing you want to do, and if you've ever been in sales or if you've done marketing, then a lot of times it's a game of numbers. You just need to have enough numbers so that a number of those folks, a percentage of those people would turn into something you want them to do. So the first one is create a list of potential candidates for peer-to-peer fundraising. You want this list to be big. You want to say, okay, who do I know? Who does my organization know? And let me just create a giant list of folks that I can potentially ask. So these are board members, staff members, volunteers, partners, returning donors, program alumni, past event attendees, and even some corporate sponsors as well. So just create a giant list of folks that you think may be interested in partaking and participating in a peer-to-peer campaign, and then understanding who they are in terms of what their segment is. So after you create this giant list, you can put it in Excel or Google Doc, kind of whatever you want. Just make sure you can actually see it. As you're working with team members, you may be missing a few gaps here and there, and they can help you fill it out. Next, determine the best way to reach them. So you want to segment these folks. So you have this giant list of people. Determine how you want to actually reach out to them. Now, the easy way to do it, if you want to phone it in, well, not literally, but if you want to phone it in, you just want to mass email like everybody for the same message. But the better way to do it is to actually segment them, figuring out how they want to be contacted. There are some high value folks like corporate sponsors. You probably want to call them so that you can pitch them your idea, gauge your reaction, and maybe adapt that messaging a little bit so that they can actually take action. There's some folks that you may want to ask via email, just like a personal one-on-one email that you send through like your Outlook or your Google Mail. So those are the folks that you want to put on a special list. And those are typically people that you want to make sure that you engage as well. And then there's other folks who like through social that you want to engage through social media or direct mail. So just kind of whatever it is, think about how you want to contact people. The more effort such as in-person communications or phone call communications, you typically want to reserve those activities for the people that you definitely want to recruit as a peer-to-peer fundraiser or you think definitely has a high chance of being successful doing peer-to-peer. And for folks that are just, you may not have a relationship with, or you may not know directly, that you can reserve some of the mass communication channels like social media or email. I have some scripts that you can use. So let me try to expand the screen so people can see it. So I have a few like scripts and templates that you can use to recruit people. So the idea is that once you have a campaign site up, that you want to build some of this marketing communications. So the first one is the script. You can just use this where you have like a header or like a subject line for your peer-to-peer campaign. And you have this text body here. A few aspects of this template that I like is first, you're talking about why someone should fundraise, and then after that, how they can fundraise. So you're making it easy for folks to understand why they should participate, and then the actions they need to take in order to do that. So as you get this presentation in review, you can just copy and paste this and adapt it to your needs. And once you have an idea of some of the newsletters you want to send, then you can create what we call a communications calendar. This is basically just a chart with working backwards. When you set the end date of your fundraising, then you can work backwards and create different newsletter touch points so that you can announce your campaign. You can say, oh, we're halfway, or you can announce different stories to engage your audience as well as to recruit additional peer-to-peer participants. Here's a different one. This is a initial registration email sent through the newsletters. You can use this as a template as well, and it's built to be a template where you're announcing that your peer-to-peer event or campaign is open, registration is free. You give people details of when, where they should meet. And then there's a button for folks to click on in order to create a personal fundraising page. And if you want to learn more details, then you go to the campaign homepage to learn more. So a lot of templates that you can use over here. If you're not kind of going to route email newsletters, or if you want to do some additional communications, you can send folks individual one-on-one emails like this. This is really successful if there's someone specific, like board members, you want to say, hey, like I need you to create a personal page, or different partners or corporate sponsors that you definitely want to have more of a personal touch in customizing rather than sending them an e-blast. So you can announce to folks like what's going to go on. And then from there, you essentially make sure that they're included in the community by thanking them in a certain way. and then you announce that you're doing this peer-to-peer campaign, and that it's easy for them to do. You want them to participate, you allow them to participate, and then you announce what your goal is, and you personalize some of this as well, so that it looks more like a personal ask than a generic a mass emailing. So you can use this as a script too. You can also use social media to recruit folks. So these are just kind of simple. This is a simple like Facebook post that you want to include an image to. If you do have an audience on Facebook, where if you have a lot of followers who are engaged on that side, then you can use this as a template. You're basically saying, hey, we're kicking this off. Please join us, or please contact us for more info. All right. And the last script over here is a phone script. So this is what you'll do. You can do a phone-a-thon for recruitment, or after you have that giant list of folks you want to recruit, and then you get all your staff members down, say, hey, here's a list of 100 people you need to contact, just follow this list. So you want to create like a script. This is a template you can use where you're basically acknowledging the donor. So you first want to thank them, tell them what you're trying to do, and then see if they want to do it. So this allows you to kind of just go down the line, call people, as well as engage your contacts this way. All right. So quick tips on when it comes to recruiting folks is that typically, yes, you have this giant list, but what you want to do is make sure that you have a core group of peer-to-peer fundraisers before you do this public announcement of your peer-to-peer campaign. This is important because what you don't want to do, at least, is blast out your peer-to-peer campaign, and then on your campaign homepage, there's nobody who's fundraising, and then there's $0 raised. So you kind of want to seed it. We call this your quiet phase, where you have a core group of people doing some fundraising. They're posting on social, they're sending out via email, they're driving some donations, or you have a few corporate sponsors going there and like creating pages for their employees. So you want to seed your campaign with activity before you do like this public launch, so that it looks like you have activity as well as you have momentum. The first 2 weeks of your campaign is typically when you recruit the most amount of fundraisers. So you'll see just a giant ticker of people creating pages, creating pages, creating pages. And this is a great proxy to understand if your campaign would be successful or not. So after 2 weeks, if you're seeing your recruitment numbers kind of trickle down, or if it's not hitting the goal, then you want to go with a plan B or plan C in order to try to recruit more people or to adapt your messaging. And then very lastly, you want to consider doing some type of training too. So a lot of times the biggest barrier for people to fundraise for you isn't the message, isn't the idea, it's actually fundraising best practices. Because once you put yourself in the shoes of your donors, they're donors, they're not fundraisers. So they may not know how to make an ask or the best way to do it or how to do it. So providing them with some education and training is very empowering for them. All right. Hand it over to Jenna real fast so she can show you what it looks like for someone to actually create a page. Hey, Jenna.
Yep. It's always fun. So yeah, how it looks like for a personal fundraiser to sign up, they'll select the join the campaign button on your fundraising site. They'll provide an email and password. I'm going to use the login option since this is our demo account. So I'm going to log in. And so this image graphic here is a default image that you can provide them for their profile image, and then they can upload their own personal photo at this point. They'll insert their first name, last name, type it in, and then based on their first name and last name, the second step of our setup wizard will auto-populate their display name and their page URL stub. You can actually default a funding goal in the back end. It'll show up here automatically. And then as you can see, the fundraiser can change it later. The second part, third part here, I should say, is the appeal text. This text here is also default information that you can set up for the fundraiser in the back end. And then they can personalize it here as well by adding graphics or video if they want to. And then they're ready to start sharing out to social media, email, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, or just go to their dashboard. And as you can see, they'll be able to see the progress of their donations. They'll also be able to create a team page or join an existing team page and see that right there in their dashboard.
So typically when it comes to peer-to-peer fundraising, the idea is to make it really easy for folks to just set up their pages so that they're not calling you or emailing you or bugging you on how to do things. The idea is that the more you automate, the easier you make it to self-service, then the more time you have as a fundraiser, as well as the easier it is for your audience to go in there and do the peer-to-peer fundraising. So that's kind of what it looks like typically. Some platforms have more complex processes. Some are meant to be more streamlined. At CauseVox, we take the approach and the philosophy of just making things really easy for folks to get started, so you get more activations and more fundraising results. All right, so now after you've kind of recruit folks, you pump them to your peer-to-peer campaign site, you say, hey, click on this register button, click on this join a campaign button. They go do that process, and then they've created these pages. The next important step is to really nurture and coach this pool of peer-to-peer fundraisers so that they can be successful going out there and fundraising for you. So let's nurture and coach. Let's talk about that. So I actually stole this from Kelly, one of our partners, as well as one of our old customers. She's Kelly McLaughlin. She has her own consultancy called Nonprofit Fit Coach. Check her out, Google it. She has a ton of free resources too. So, one of the things that she says is that the primary way for you to be successful when it comes to peer-to-peer is either you recruit just a ton of participants, like you have that volume in order to get there, or what you do is you look at your participants, you look at the potential ones, and then you see how you can make them more successful. So we're going to talk about the second approach, because typically for our audience, for the small and medium-sized nonprofits, you don't have the luxury of having a huge ad spend. You don't have the luxury of having 100,000 people on your list that will just donate to you when you send an email. So let's talk about that. And then on the bottom over here, we do have some resources here in that link where you can take a look at, which are some of the examples that I'll show you. So the most important tool to help you nurture and coach your fundraisers is actually a fundraising toolkit. So this is something like a PDF or a page on your website with a whole bunch of links and materials that you can just send one of your prospective peer-to-peer fundraisers that will empower them to go out there and raise a ton of funds. So typically speaking, this is like a PDF of some sort where it has a couple different things like your brand guidelines, like what the campaign is about, images and logos they can use for their posts and for their emails, templates that they can use as well. Just a lot of things that are like pre-built, so they're not starting from scratch. Once you give someone the right tools, then they can have a higher chance of being successful, especially when you match that with education, which is our whole philosophy over here at CauseVox, with building great tools and doing education. So creating a fundraising toolkit is very important. We do have this download here, which is that same link. So go to this link over here. We'll paste it in the chat. Essentially, there's 10 peer-to-peer fundraising toolkits of other successful peer-to-peer campaigns that you can just borrow. So you can just download this for free. And I want to kind of show you a few things I like about these toolkits, because that actually helps you do your fundraising that way. So let me pull up my screen. So we'll go over a few. I just want to make sure I have enough time here. All right, so I'm going to share a different one. Here it is. All right. Okay, so this is Faith in Action. I really like their toolkit here because it's visually engaging, where it looks really professional, but then also has a lot of like step-by-step items. So this is a PDF they created as a fundraising toolkit. So after someone creates a personal page, then they're sent this PDF. It takes them through a lot of different things. I think one of the things that is really interesting is you're talking about the why, because the messaging is so important to really compel one of your fundraisers to actually go out there and carve out time and do the fundraising for you. So they're reiterating their mission, reiterating why they exist, and what they do as an organization. And then they're inviting folks and saying, hey, you have a role in furthering this mission. And then they're giving people like a step-by-step. So step one, they go to give.faithinaction.org, and then they can create a personal page. And then also, what I mentioned before, you can attend like a 1-hour webinar so that you can get some guidance and some help in terms of how to create a personal fundraising page. So they're providing these resources and some of these nurturing opportunities. And then they're kind of detailing out like you create your page, you set your goal, you build a list, kind of all the things that a personal fundraiser would need to do in order to be successful. So I find this really valuable because a lot of people like step-by-steps. Similar to today's presentation, we're giving a step-by-step on how to do a peer-to-peer campaign. It just makes things a lot easier and gives people a roadmap to be successful. So I really like that. They also have a walkthrough of actually how someone creates a page. So if someone doesn't want to go attend a 1-hour webinar, which is highly likely, they just give you some self-service options where they can just follow the instructions if they need to. So these are kind of just some screenshots of the CauseVox campaign site that they have, and they're entering in over here, and they're telling people, hey, go in here. This is what a URL is. This is what fundraising goal is. They're giving them a ton of detail just in case they need that context in order to be successful. They're also sharing like how they can build their list. So like a lot of different things I think are really valuable in this one that I like a lot. If I scroll down a little bit more, even give a ton of sample emails too, of which folks can just copy and paste this, customize it, and just blast it off to their friends and family. Having these templates is really valuable, so it saves a ton of time for your participants. So I really like this example. There's a different example too that I really like too. So let me share this one. And just as a reminder, all of these toolkits you can download and you can actually digest it and copy and paste it through that link that I just mentioned before. All right, so here's Amigos International. They're doing something cool too when it comes to peer-to-peer. Their toolkit actually follows a really similar format where they talk about what the organization is, the best practices, and then they do this step-by-step. So if you see here, I want to fundraise now, what they have these 5 steps over here. So I really love that. And then all these are linked too. So one of the pieces I like a lot is that they're actually asking folks to thank people who donated to their page. I think it's something that's simple, but also is very often forgotten because when it comes to your peer-to-peer fundraisers that you source, they don't really know a lot about your organization. They're donating because their friends asked them to donate. So it's really hard to be a good steward as an organization to those folks because they may not know what you do. They just donated because their friend asked them to. So if you ask your peer-to-peer fundraisers to actually thank those donors, it goes a really long way in kicking off the stewardship process as well as the nurturing process for those new donors. And then they link a bunch of resources too, like the peer-to-peer campaign site, which is here. And then they share some screenshots of what it looks like, and then they walk through the process of how folks can create a personal page. So that's really valuable too. And then let me see. Let's go with one more example here since we have the time. So this is Team Volo Kids over here. Let me shrink this a little bit. This is their fundraising toolkit. It's also a PDF, so like a presentation. So they talk about kind of why people are, what they do, like the why of the organization. They're using a lot of visuals here. I like this because it's a little less like a Word document format, like our first two, more like a PowerPoint presentation than a PDF. So it's a lot more visual. So they're sharing that they're really spending a lot of time on the purpose and the why and making it compelling for your participants. Over here, a lot of quotes. And then over here, some steps to be successful in fundraising. So very common practice over here. I definitely encourage everybody to download our fundraising toolkits. So that being said, you can use our fundraising toolkits in order to drive the nurturing and coaching of your peer-to-peer fundraisers so that they can go out there and be successful. All right. The last step is reporting. So you come up with a great fundraising idea with peer-to-peer. You have a campaign site. You know how to recruit folks. You know how to nurture them. You're seeing all these funds come in. After you do all of this, you want to think about some of the reporting and some of the metrics, either while your campaign is running, even before, or definitely after. So when it comes to reporting, there's a few metrics that I think are very important. I think it's very easy to be overwhelmed by how you can track a lot of different things. But when it comes to it, I have a few metrics that I look at. One is average donation. So what you want to do is pull a report from your CauseVox platform, or you just look at it, or whatever platform you have. And then you want to just add it up, look at total number of donations that you raised through your peer-to-peer campaign, divide that by the number of donations, and that will give you the average donation size. Why this is important is because then you can use this insight for your next peer-to-peer campaign, so you can help set donation tiers and reference points. Like for example, if you find out the average donation is $100, but then your through your peer-to-peer campaign. And then if you find out that a lot of the donation tiers that you have on your donation form, either on your website or your peer-to-peer campaign, are well below $100, that means you're leaving a lot of donations on the table. Or if it's the other way around, then you can adjust it as well if it's too high. So look at average donation size. The other one that I call is your source ratio. This is basically what it tells you is what is the percentage of donations that came in through peer-to-peer driven. So what you want to do is add up the amount of peer-to-peer donations, like the dollars that came in are sourced through peer-to-peer pages, such as personal pages and team pages, and divide that by the total raised in your peer-to-peer campaign. And this will tell you, hey, like 50% of our donations came in through peer-to-peer pages on our campaign, or 90% came in through peer-to-peer. That gives you a sense of how successful this social fundraising aspect is when it comes to your fundraising initiative. This is really important because then as you're doing your peer-to-peer initiatives in the future, if you're seeing a lot of success doing this, then you can set a goal to raise that from like 50 to 60%, for example. And then if you do that, then that'll tell you, hey, if we do increase this success, then we need X amount, we need to recruit X amount of fundraisers in order to get to that certain point. Another metric that I think is valuable is number of activated peer-to-peer pages. So it's easy to recruit a lot of people. They may create pages, but they may not go on to be successful when it comes to fundraising, meaning raising $1 at least. Then that will really tell you, hey, like we have a lot of people signing up, but then not a lot of people being successful fundraising. They're not driving donations to their personal page. This will tell you that you have a nurturing and coaching problem. Or you might have a platform problem too, or a combination of the two, where your platform's hard to use, it's not working, or maybe folks that don't have enough resources or a compelling message in order to go out there and do the fundraising. So this will tell you, hey, I need to build out my fundraising toolkit, or I need to launch a webinar. And I think the very last metric that I look at too would be your activation ratio. So this is, you take the last metric, your activated P2P pages divided by your total P2P pages. And this will just tell you, give you a ratio that you can use to measure campaign after campaign to see if it's increasing or decreasing. All right, so you look at metrics. Obviously, you have some of these core metrics, and you'll look at your donor data and your fundraiser data, good things like that. But one of the things you also want to do is you want to perform an after-action review. I used to work at the Pentagon, and then a lot of Army folks would be like, we need to do AAR. I'm like, what is an AAR? It's an after-action review that Army uses. Basically, it's a debrief. You answer 4 questions of what was expected to happen, what actually occurred, what happened, and why. It basically allows your team to do a debrief. There is a resource here that I linked that is pretty good, where it walks you through how to actually conduct it with your team. So you can do some learning, document that, and then create a even more successful peer-to-peer campaign in the future. All right, I'm gonna hand it back to Jenna to deep dive into some peer-to-peer best practices on some live campaign sites.
All right, I will share my screen real quick. Let's try again. We can start with MeetFight. I'll try to go quickly through this since we are running short on time. So again, this is MeetFight's homepage. I like right off the bat that they have an impact metric. They're showing donors the impact of their campaign already. They have funded 16 bites for the people they're helping. As you scroll through the campaign, I like the fact that it's a very thorough description. I think I really appreciate a best practice would be a little bit of a description about the organization here and an explanation of who they are, what they've done so far as a 501c3. They've raised $2 million for the National MS Society. And that talks about more about their programs for people living with MS. So I think that this very thorough description that provides impact information is very helpful to donors. And then I like that they link out to another URL, their website, to direct people for more information. And then I also like how they describe what's happening on this specific campaign. So I think their appeal is very, very thoughtful. And then I also just appreciate that their use of team pages. So that would be what I would see as best practice for Meat Fights campaign. Rob, feel free to jump in if you have any other additional insights. I'm going to move on to St. John's Food Share. This particular campaign also uses an impact metric, and they were able to feed over 1,000 neighbors for a week. And that kind of impact is really encouraging and motivating to donors. I would say that the appeal text on this page is donor focused in the sense that they're really, again, also playing to the impact that they're making in their community. They used a custom graphic, so I would say that's another good practice to customize your graphics and make them visually stimulating, as well as the text being compelling. So again, they're focusing on expanding their efforts in their community. I would say another best practice would be to incorporate this matching gift option. So they were able to get a matching grant through foundation, and all the donations are now matched, doubled. So if you're able to incorporate that kind of matching corporate match or sponsorship, I think that would be another great best practice. And then I do want to move on to, I added in Unleash Your Love, which is, they do a virtual gala every year. I did want to just highlight, because I liked the way that they're, the way they visually represented their information here. I think it's very professionally done, very visually stimulating. They have their match listed here. And so, and as well as their sponsorships on the side here. So it's just a really nice display of all the information, like highlighting all their sponsorships, their corporate match. They link out to other URLs here. And they have their video presentation also linked here for how to participate for their premiere. And then lastly, the Jane-a-thon with Invest in Kids. This one I would say is more peer-to-peer focused campaign landing page. They are speaking specifically to their fundraisers, how to sign up and participate in this in-person ski party. So they're going to participate. They're going to go on this fun-filled ski snowboarding fundraising event in Colorado. So this is all speaking to the fundraisers' participation, and it's answering the who, what, when, where, the why, and the how. So the why, I think, is also incorporated in the impact of the fundraisers' fundraising efforts. So yeah, I think the best practice here would be another thorough explanation on their appeal, speaking to who, what, when, where, why, and how to participate as a fundraiser. Okay, and then they go in detail how to register, right? How to participate, and then they tell them specifically what the expectation is. Your goal is to raise $175. That's the first goal. So yep, they were able to incentivize as well with prizes, and they also included sponsorships. So this one has a lot of components, a lot of best practices here that you can glean from. I'm going to kick it back up.
Cool. I think there's some great best practices, just kind of just going over really quickly. I know I am way over time, but sorry about that. We do have some of these examples too, which in a future webinar we'll do additional deep dives on. And just want to share with this because Jenna shared Meat Fights example. They recently told me that they couldn't have raised over $100,000 without our platform when it came to peer-to-peer. So I was really excited just to hear that. And then Amigos International, which I mentioned before, with their fundraising toolkit, they mentioned that our platform is really easy to use. I think one of the important things to think about is as you're organizing a peer-to-peer campaign, having a great strategy, having a great platform goes hand in hand. So we'd love to have you on our platform or check us out at least. So want to definitely open it up for questions just for a few minutes, since I know we're a little over time. If anyone has any questions, feel free to use the chat window, and we'll be happy to get those answered for you.
Looks like we have one. Patrick asks, how are donations made through these pages integrated with our vendor system? And how are demographics then integrated into our CRM?
Yeah, so your vendor system could be a lot of different things. It could be your website, or it could be your donor database, or it could be just kind of whatever it is. So I'll try to answer that question more broadly. So on CauseVox, you can integrate our platform with your website, as well as you can integrate the data that our platform collects, either like your donation data or your fundraiser data with your donor CRM. So we have automations that make it work. If you want to set one up, which I highly encourage folks to do, because the more you automate, the more time you have with a little investment when it comes to the initial setup time. Or what you can do is you can do just a data download and then a data upload to whatever system that you want. We provide data in CSV format as well as in Excel format, and then you can run reports and all that good stuff. If you're just doing if you want to look at your data just very lightly, you can also just use CauseVox for some reporting too, just for your peer-to-peer campaign. You can do that just within our platform without having to use a different system. Cool. Any other questions today on peer-to-peer? We have questions from earlier about if this presentation is recorded. Yes, it's been recorded. And it will be sent out within the next 1 or 2 business days. The slides will also be included as well. So you'll be able to view the slides as well as view the presentation. So hopefully you enjoy it.
Oh, we got another question. What is the best way to find donators, i.e. via social media, etc.?
This is a hard one to answer because every organization is unique and every organization is different. I think a lot of times the challenge that organizations have and nonprofits have is they think a little bit too much about the channel and not enough about the message and the audience. So meaning that I remember when I first started this company 20 billion years ago, that social media was rising and a lot of nonprofits were trying to figure it out. And they thought that it was a silver bullet of raising a lot of money and creating a lot of impact. So they poured all their eggs in that basket, spending money, hiring people, just all that good stuff. So what happened is that, yes, they had a presence on social media, but what also happened was that they didn't get the reach they wanted because of how social media works. Algorithms change. Demographics that use social media are very specific as well. So they didn't see the success they wanted to see. So what I would encourage folks to think about first is, if you want to get donors, think about what your story is, what the impact is, what your message is, essentially. Think about who your intended audience is, or who your existing donor audience is, and craft messages that really resonate with that. I think if you get those fundamentals right, the channels will follow, and you'll get your donors through social media or email or in person or whatever it is. You'll get your donors and you'll be successful fundraising. All right. Let me see. We have another question too about from Cheryl. Our donors can barely get to our website. So I don't know how to unpack that one, but it seems like it could be a lot of different things. Cheryl, if you want to provide more details. So I think what we're trying to get at here is if our donors don't go to our website, then how can we even organize a peer-to-peer campaign, since a peer-to-peer campaign is digital, right? So this is a hard one to unpack. I think we think that there are benefits of running a peer-to-peer initiative online. And so if your donors don't know about your website, then they probably won't go to it. But if your donors, but you reach your donors somehow before. So what that means is that you probably, if it wasn't online, then it was probably at an event or in person. Then what happens then is that a lot of folks use our platform for the audience that is online, like for the other half of the audience who have friends and family that are online. So even if your donors are not online, their friends and family probably are. So there's still a value in creating a peer-to-peer campaign site where it's online, where people can link to, where your corporate sponsors can get visibility as well. And then folks can have these personal pages and then they can send it to their friends and family by text message or by email in order to drive their friends and family who are online to make a donation. So there is capability in doing that. the other capability too is that at CauseVox, we intentionally understand that a lot of donations come in through cash and check still or in person. So even though you're getting all these offline donations, you can still input it into your peer-to-peer campaign site. So you can showcase what your community is doing online and offline and have a destination for that. So there's still a lot of value in doing that. Cool. Let me see. We probably only have a minute or two left. I think I'll just wrap it up here. Yeah. So thanks again for your time here in our How to Organize a Peer-to-Peer Fundraising Campaign. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us anytime at CauseVox. You can register for a on-demand demo, meaning that it's a recorded demo, recorded by Jenna actually. So she'll kind of take you through the platform, what it does in a high overview, or you can even schedule a demo directly with Jenna. Or just a conversation to see how our platform can help you organize a peer-to-peer campaign. So we're excited about doing that. If you already have a peer-to-peer platform, then we still love to chat too, because there are ideas and improvements and optimizations that you do in order to recruit more peer-to-peer participants or to make it easier for them to get set up. So we'd love to discuss with you on how we can get you switched over. Once again, my name is Rob Wu, founder and CEO of CauseVox. We also have Jenna, Norwich Francesco, and we love how we spent the last hour with y'all. And we hope to keep in touch soon. Thanks so much.